I want to turn now to CNN senior legal analyst and former federal prosecutor Ellie Honig and Tim O'Brien, senior columnist for Bloomberg Opinion. He is also the author of Trump Nation. Gentlemen, good evening. Mr. O'Brien, I'm going to start with you. You say it often looks like Trump is ensnared, but you believe that this time it really could be an existential crisis. Explain why you think it's different this time.
Well, it's different this time, John, because he has two deeply resourced, sophisticated prosecutors breathing down his neck. He has juggled these kinds of accusations in the past from journalists, but journalists don't have subpoena power. Journalists don't have the power of the law behind them. And he's in a corner now. We don't know, if he'll stay there. We don't know if he'll end up, deeply penalized in the civil case and possibly going to jail in the criminal case. I don't see that as an outcome, but I don't see also that he's just going to skate through this as he has through every other legal snafu he's encountered in the past, because it's just a very different set of circumstances this time. And his organization has been under pressure. He has people inside his own company who could potentially flip against him. His in-house accountant has been indicted. His outside accountants appear to be cooperating with investigators. And now there's the likelihood, I think, at some point that they're going to have to testify under oath. Whether he says anything useful in that deposition is another matter. But it is a really intense set of circumstances facing him right now.
Ellie, I want you to respond to what Tim had to say, because, he puts together, it seems like the walls are closing in. And then I want to ask you another question about the Trump children, but what do you think? He says it's different this time. You think it's...
Major threat to the Trump organization, major threat to the business, major threat to the financial well-being of Donald Trump and his family. I think it's very likely we see a civil lawsuit by the Attorney General Letitia James. If that happens, that could wipe out the Trump org. I think the question of criminal charges is a very different matter. Right. I agree with Tim. I don't think that's particularly likely based on what we know right now, but of course we don't know everything.
Let's talk about the beyond that. Not only a blow for Trump, but his children as well. The judge picking apart the arguments from Trump's lawyers. It looks like they're going to be focused on the answers for what the judge called copious evidence of possible financial fraud. Talk to me about that.
Well, you just said it. The single most important word in this 8-page ruling or so by the judge today, copious. Copious. That means a lot. I looked it up. And the judge said copious evidence of potential fraud here. That's coming from a judge. That's a big deal. And the judge said, because the Attorney General has shown me this level, this quality of evidence, I'm going to uphold the subpoenas. Generally speaking, prosecutors, investigators have very broad authority to issue subpoenas, and that's why we saw such a decisive ruling from the judge.
Well, this is we often talk about Trump's doublespeak. He'll say something in one and then completely negate it in the next, because part of the argument Trump lawyers are making is that the former president denies knowledge of his finances, but then he goes on and puts out a long statement bragging about his businesses and net worth. Is that a legal problem for him, or could it become a legal problem for him?
It is. He just couldn't control himself, and this is why lawyers always tell their clients, just shut up, just say nothing. Lawyers say he didn't know. Trump couldn't help himself. He issued one of those memorandums that he writes, I guess in lieu of Twitter, said, I knew everything. That's going to be a problem.
Yeah. Tim, you have been in a deposition with Trump before. We just saw a clip of how he acts during a legal deposition. Trump and his children will all be under oath, and they have to be on the same page. How do you see this going?
Well, that deposition, Don, was involved litigating the same fact pattern that's in play right now. Did he inflate the value of his assets when it was useful for him to do so? Did he deflate it when it was useful for him to do so? And how responsible was he for all of those things? And the same accountants who just, essentially fired Donald Trump were accountants we deposed over a decade ago. Again, the only difference was I was a journalist involved in that case. I wasn't a public prosecutor. During our deposition with Trump, we deposed him for 2 days in December of 2007, 2 8-hour sessions. And he was caught out lying more than 30 times in the course of those 2 depositions. We had bank documents. We had his tax returns. We simply pushed things across the table to him that he couldn't refute under oath. And our evidence, I don't think, was nearly as voluminous as what Tish James's office has and what the Manhattan DA's office has. And as Ellie pointed out, the evidence is so voluminous that the judge essentially said to the Trumps, dispense with this idea that this is a political prosecution. I think the Trumps had a lot to point to. I think Tish James has been injudicious at times. But be that as it may, the judge said the evidence I'm seeing is incontrovertible. There's something here, and we're going to take a close look at it. And now with all of them, not just Donald Trump, but Donald Trump Jr. and Ivanka Trump and Eric all being forced to testify under oath. If they get to a point where they're not going to simply do what Eric did and take the fifth hundreds of times, they're going to have to make very sure that their stories line up. They're going to have to make very sure that there's not evidence on the table that contradicts any lies or misstatements they make. And that's a very, very tricky situation. On top of it, Donald Trump is about the worst client you could put into a deposition. I have to believe his lawyers are pulling their hair out. On Monday, they're saying Donald Trump has no knowledge in a specific way about any of his own finances, which of course has no credibility, that statement, but they've said that. And then a day later, he's on social media like Yosemite Sam, shooting himself in his own feet. And blowing up his own legal defense.
Well, as Ellie said, you said lawyers say to their clients, shut up, don't talk. Ellie, that's pretty hard for Donald Trump.
Not the easiest client.
Thank you both. Thanks, I appreciate it.